Rev it up and welcome to Cars Yeah, show number 1562.
This is Cars Yeah, where you'll enjoy interviews with inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Mark Green is here to provide you with a fuel injection of automotive inspiration. So get in, sit down, buckle up, and get ready for a wild ride here on Cars Yeah.
Hello, inspiring automotive enthusiasts, and welcome to Cars Yeah. I'm revved up and very excited to share with you today a guest calling in from Lakeland, Florida, Pete Doriguzzi. Pete Doriguzzi was born and raised just outside of Denver, Colorado, where riding motocross and working on cars and trucks was an integral part of his early life. And then 10 years ago, Peter moved to Florida to work with Heacock Classic Collector Car Insurance and has served as underwriting manager, risk advisor, valued guru, and experimental marketing ambassador since then. He's worked alongside Ford Heacock, and you'll remember, good long-term listeners will remember Ford was a guest way back here in 2015 on Cars Yeah. And they've also worked on the Lake Mirror Classic Concours. He's a member of the Shelby American Automobile Club, and when he's not attending events for Heacock Classic, you can find him at the track polishing his skills behind the wheel. We're going to talk with Pete in just a minute, but first a word from our valued sponsors that make Cars Yeah possible. Sit tight. We'll be right back. When it comes to your vehicles, things can get a little messy. Rain, snow, salt, mud, dirt, and everything Mother Nature comes up with can hurt the finish of your vehicles, both inside and out, like that bird on the branch up above your car. I'm not worried, though, because I've used Covercraft products on my ride since 1975. That's right, since 1975. Today, Covercraft offers you a total solution for vehicle protection. They make the best fitting, finest made car covers in the world and offer a wide variety of materials, colors, and options that protect your paint and the interior, whether your car is inside or outside. Plus, they keep your car cool when it's parked in the sun. Live where it's really sunny all the time? Lucky. Covercraft covers and sunscreens are the best. If you've got pets, messy kids, messy in-laws, just plain messy friends, Covercraft seat covers are the perfect fit and perfect solution for keeping your seats looking new. They're easy on, easy off, and they're easy to wash too. And don't forget Covercraft's custom fit floor mats and trunk liners. Plus, they're very handy seat back organizers. They are must-haves for all your vehicles. Your car, your truck, your van, or whatever you drive will say thank you. And I've got a deal for you. If you use the code YEAH120, that's YEAH120, at covercraft.com, you can get 10% off your Covercraft order. Just go to covercraft.com, check out all the products they have to protect your vehicles, use the code YEAH120 at checkout, and get that 10% discount. That's covercraft.com and use YEAH120 at checkout. Covercraft, they've got you covered. Kevin Buckler is a winning racer and team owner of the Racers Group. He has over 100 professional wins, multiple wins at the 24-hour of Daytona, and a win at Le Mans. Kevin realized the racing world is about the people and founded Adobe Road Winery. He and his team have created a winning combination with the Racing Series, 4 ultra-premium red wine blends that are in a class of their own with a racing twist. Just like in racing, these wines comprise of art, precision, engineering, science, superb taste, all blended together with a whole lot of fun. There are 4 carefully crafted blends with race-inspired names: Redline, Apex, Shift, and the 24. When you purchase all 4, you get the entire lineup in a beautifully designed gift box. There's a printed description of the blends inside the box lid, and every bottle is parked in a protective, die-cut placeholder. The bottles feature 3-dimensional labels, and I promise you'll want to keep them after enjoying these delicious wines. The box is so cool, you'll want to keep it too. The Racing Series is a killer gift for the automotive enthusiasts in your life, and I have a deal for you. If you use the code CARSYEAH, all one word, all caps, at checkout, you'll get $10 off any purchase of wine from the Racing Series. Your wine ships promptly and arrives quickly. Use the code CARSYEAH at checkout for $10 off on your purchase today. There's always a seat at the table for excellence with the Racing Series. Go to adoberoadwines.com and use the code CARSYEAH today to get your deal. Cheers. Hey, Pete, welcome to Cars Yeah. Are you buckled up and ready for a fun ride?
Mark, I'm buckled up, Hans devices on, and helmet fastened. Pedal to the metal, Mark.
Perfect. Well, I hope we don't need that helmet and Hans device. I will try to keep it between the guardrails today, but you're going to be doing some of the driving too, so some of this responsibility falls on you. And since you work for an insurance company, we just want to put this disclaimer out there. We're going to be careful today. We're going to take care of our car. So here we go. So Pete, share something with me that most people don't know about you.
Mark, first of all, thanks for having me on Cars Yeah.
You're welcome.
This was a tough one to come up with, but probably most people do not know that I grew up working in my father's HVAC, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning company in Denver, Colorado. Started working with my dad when I was 12.
Wow. Well, that must have taught you a lot of great things about business.
You know, it's interesting, you know, to work and essentially live in a family business. And so, yes, you know, as much as you may not want to pick up on things or learn, it's just kind of part of the fabric of life. And yeah, you definitely pick up quite a few life lessons along the way. And I have to say, you know, I learned a skilled labor and something that, you know, it resounds today in my life. So.
Well, no doubt. I was fortunate as well. My father was an architect and had his own business. And of course, every night you'd hear about what was going on. And weekends when I was as young as, I think, 8 or 9, he would take me into his office and work on Saturdays, and he would pay me to clean his offices. And I just remember going through there, and you'd ask things and learn things. And, you know, back then, as we're young people, a lot of that stuff we kind of go, why is this important? You know, but it sticks with you, doesn't it? And then later on you go, oh, Dad was right.
Exactly. I think, and also, you know, being a parent, you start to understand those things that, you know, all kids resisted back when we were, you know-it-alls back when we were teenagers, but it now all comes resounding back in daily life. And now it's the light bulb goes on and you say, yep, I am doing exactly what my parents had taught me. So
right.
Always good life lessons.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about a success quote or a mantra, some kind of saying that has meaning for you. It's a nice way to get the inspirational tire smoking here on Cars Yeah. I know you love to go to the track and burn a little rubber. So Pete, take the wheel.
Mark, I guess you would call it my inspirational quote is very simple. It's one that I can remember because, again, something easy. It's to know your why in this world. And when I say that, you know, it's everybody's why is different. And heck, it could be even daily. It could change for you. But be able to know what your why is. Know your why in work. Know your why in your family life. Know your why. And when you figure that out, it'll help to invigorate you when you get out of bed in the morning and helps you push you through the good times and the bad. Mm-hmm. And again, I think if you know what excites you about a purpose-filled life, it makes everything else fall into place.
Oh, absolutely. My regular listeners know I'm a key adapter of the why concept. In fact, on my website, down on the homepage of the bottom footer, there's a page link to my why. Why did I start what I'm doing now? I assume you're probably familiar with Simon Sinek then?
That's exactly. Mark, I'm as transparent as they come. I picked that up from Simon just as trying to, you know, figure out some ways to manage our office, and that was, you know, it just resounded with me, and I've shared it with many people that I've come across, and definitely something that I buy in. So I'm right there on the same page with you, Mark.
Yeah, I love that. I'm going to put a link to that on the show notes page here for Pete on the Cars Yeah website. For those of you that, if you're a regular listener, you've heard this before, but if you're not, or maybe you ignored me, go and watch Simon Sinek. There's a great TED Talk with him, and there's another talk with him about why in the book that he's written about finding your why. It's so important. And I'll never forget a lesson when I was young, when I kind of first learned this. There was a kid in school who was always getting in trouble. And I couldn't figure out why this kid was always getting in trouble. He spoke up in class. He always got taken out. He got paddled in the hallway back when they did that. And I could never figure it out. One night at dinner, I asked my dad, I said, Dad, why does he act like that? Because I grew up in a house where I was taught to respect elders and behave. And I always tried hard to be a good student. And I remember my father said, well, maybe you need to ask him why. And I went, well, he's kind of a scary kid, Dad. I don't think he might punch me, And long story short, I did do that. He and I ended up being friends. And I went over to his house one day after school, like you do when you're in grade school. And I saw the why. He didn't have a house like mine. His parents were divorced. His brother was in the room smoking dope. His sister was totally wigging out somewhere else. And I just went, this place is out of control. Now I see why he's out of control in class. And so I figured out his why pretty darn quick. And I also figured out how grateful I was to have a loving, comforting, and encouraging home. So yeah, listeners, figure out your why. It's so important. Well, let's talk about what you do for a living. Heacock Classic Collector Car Insurance. Many of my listeners drive collector cars. Most of you out there, if you drive a collector car, you know about specialty insurance like Heacock. If you don't, you need to investigate because you're not being properly insured and you're probably paying too much to insure a car that you have, or you might get a nasty surprise when something happens to that car. So let me ask you to talk more about Heacock. You've been there for a long time. I mentioned Ford has been a guest on the show. He was guest number 250, so it's taken me a while to catch up to get you on here, Pete, but I'm glad you're here. Listeners, you go back and listen to my talk with Ford, which it was great back May 18th, 2015. It's on the website. So tell me all about Heacock Classic Collector Car Insurance.
Sure, you bet, Mark. And I do remember when Ford, it was early in the working stages with Ford when he did your podcast early on. So I do recall back to those days.
Awesome.
What we do, Heacock Classic, one of the leading promoters of agreed value insurance, and we've been in the business. God, I'm trying to think back here since essentially 1989, insuring race cars. Really, that's where our program started. Ford had some big, long ties back to Sebring in the early days of vintage racing here in the Southeast, and essentially started a program and then grew it into what it is today, which is a national leading insurer for collector cars and race cars. We provide coverage, we provide policies for people that have a collector vehicle, use a car in a collector lifestyle, and we provide the agreed value coverage that you can't find on a daily auto or a personal auto policy. And that's really the difference between the standard auto policy and a collector car is really what we call the agreed value. And that's simply put, kind of an elevator speech. When there's a total loss on a vehicle, and we call it a special vehicle or a specialty type of vehicle, that 66 Mustang in your garage, when there's a total loss on that, there is no question about what number we're going to pay you. There's no depreciation. There's no calculation about what is this car worth. It's the agreed value that we have set in the policy, and no ifs, ands, or buts. That's what we're paying you when there's a total loss. So it's protecting your investment in a way that can't be done on a standard auto policy.
Absolutely. So many people, if their car is damaged or stolen or totaled, and they call their insurance company, everyone thinks their car is worth more than it may be. And so they get that nasty surprise going, well, we'll give you this for it. And like, what? I can't buy another car for that. So this kind of insurance is so important. And of course, Ford Heacock back in 1978 started the Southeast Vintage Racing Association, known as SVRA, which is a wonderful organization, racing group. I raced vintage cars for a long time with Sovereign here in the Pacific Northwest, but very familiar with SVRA, raced at some courses back there with a lot of those folks. And I think it was originally only like 25 drivers and supporters, which started that thing. I mean, it started way back when a lot of this kind of stuff wasn't even thought of. Nobody had even thought of doing it, right?
It was, if I remember, the name of the first race was the Kendall Vintage Cup, and it was, you hit on something there, Mark. It was really a kind of a ragtag bunch of guys that, this really hadn't been done before. I mean, on the West Coast, it was, Steve Earle and his organization, but on the East Coast, there really wasn't an organization, and Ford kind of picked up the flag and really just said, let's go have some fun with this. Let's see what we can do with it. And this was long before these cars became the multi-million-dollar, vehicles that you see today. But again, it was just kind of a bunch of guys that shared a common interest and had a belief in the stars, or the cars were the stars. And really, it was just about having fun with like-minded people.
Right, absolutely. I was at Laguna Seca when Ferrari was the mark of choice, and I remember watching a race with, I believe there were 22 or 23 Ferrari GTOs all racing together at the track, and I was standing on top of Bruce Canepa's trailer leading into turn 4, and Bruce was on one side of me, and he leaned over and he said, imagine being the collector car insurance guy insuring all these right now. Do you think he's cowering under a trailer waiting for the checkered flag to come out? I wouldn't want to be that guy. But, you guys give those of us who have collector cars a sense of confidence. There are some rules and regulations with some policies, but they're very lenient in how you use the car and who can drive the car and those kind of things. It puts a sense of security when you have so much money tied up into a vehicle that if something, heaven forbid, did happen, you're at least going to walk away with a check so you could go buy something else and you don't get that nasty surprise going, well, that's an old 66 fastback. That ain't worth nothing. It's a GT 350. What are you talking about? A GT what? So
exactly. It's one of those, if you're going to be a part of the hobby, and many of your listeners have been in the hobby for a long time, there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes into a car or a collection. And you spoke to it there just about, can you sleep at night? Are you comfortable knowing that your hobby and your investment is protected? And that's what we provide. An agreed value policy helps you get to that point where you say, yes, I am covered and I'm covered properly.
And it's pretty rare now. Did I understand you correctly that you also do have insurance for on-track racing?
We've got a program for some on-track racing, not all, and it's mainly just vintage racing. Mm-hmm. That's really kind of our background, and so we've got a program for vintage racing and those types of events. So yes.
Fantastic. Well, I'll make sure I put links, but Heacock, Heacock, Heacock Classic Collector Car Insurance is a company to check that out if you've got something special in your garage. Let me ask you this. What do you consider a classic collector car? Is there an age point where it stops, or does it depend on how you drive the car, how often you drive the car? Real briefly, what are some of the rules?
You bet. Great question, and one that we hear all the time. It's there's a lot of misinformation out there, but for us, at Heacock Classic, there is no age limit on the year of manufacture of a vehicle. So I tell people we can do cars, we can insure cars from the brass era all the way up to a 2020 Ferrari. We like to say it's less about the car, it's more about how the car is used. Mm-hmm. And like what we were talking about earlier, just about living the collector car lifestyle. So if it's your pleasure use car, and that's really the terminology that we use, if the car is used for pleasure use and it's garage kept and it's well cared for and the driver is a good citizen and doesn't have a bunch of tickets and accidents, then you'll probably qualify for our program.
Great. Awesome. Well, that's really important because I have a lot of friends who have what we call a daily driver. They go back and forth to work. They go to the grocery store and that thing, but then they have a toy or two or 3 or 4 or maybe more. Yep. A lot of them do have more. And a lot of those cars are not driven very much. Even myself, I typically take my wife's car on the weekend when I do stuff because my old daily driver, which I don't drive anywhere anymore because I work at home, gets very little use. And I have a collector car that gets even less use because that one I baby and I don't want to leave it anywhere and it's all original and I don't want anything to happen to it. So these are the kind of cars that I can look at and say, okay, if I only drive my E46 BMW maybe 800 miles a year, that's kind of a babied collector car because I just don't take it out of the garage very much. I know my listeners are going, Mark, I thought you were a car guy. What's going on? Well, I am, but when you work at home, you don't have to commute very much. Let me ask you real quickly, too, with this pandemic that we're dealing with right now, and we don't have to dig too deep into this, but how has that been affecting you and your co-workers? Are you guys doing okay? Everybody healthy?
We are. I was just talking to somebody earlier today about that I had been at Amelia Island with, early in the month.
The last
of March,
show to make it under yeah. Bill Warner, man, that guy's a smart guy.
He lucked out again,
yeah.
And not 4 days after we got back from that event, we were planning on how to put together our workforce with tools to work from home and keep our call center going. And with incredible efforts from our IT staff and our upper management, they made it happen. And it was a very smooth transition.
Nice.
And that's not to say things didn't go, wrong in the back end, but it has affected us in the sense that we're a B2C company. We're very out in front of the public, and we tend to do a lot of events. Well, as you and everybody has seen, the events have all but dried up for the first couple quarters of this year. So,
right.
That part of it's been difficult, and it's obviously a tough maybe to look into the crystal ball, say when is the next event going to happen, and how will it happen, because everything is going to change on how we interact out in the field.
Right.
But at the same time, it's really made us look at the industry and do somewhat of a slight paradigm shift in that, okay, we all know that collector car guys like to get together. Car guys just like to be around one another and socialize about cars. Where can we make that happen in the digital space? Mm-hmm. So what it's done for us, you still have to insure your cars even during the pandemic, and even when they're not being, driven, it's good to have insurance on them. So for us, it's been really just how do we continue to create that experience that we would have out in the field, out at the races, out at the car shows, but doing it online and somehow doing it digitally. So social media has taken on a new, I think for everybody, everybody has seen it, social media has taken on a new, meaning for everyone. And I'm one who doesn't really spend much time on social media, but I will tell you right now, I'm a late adopter to it, but I am now in it full bore. So.
Oh, yeah.
It's been interesting, but it's been, we've been doing good.
Good. Well, I'm glad everybody's healthy. Let's take a short break and thank our sponsors here, and we're going to come right back. So sit tight. My favorite collector car magazine is Keith Martin's Sports Car Market. I've been a subscriber for decades. Sports Car Market is the Wall Street Journal for enthusiasts and collectors. It's your monthly must-read, whether you dream of owning a collector car, maybe you have 2, or maybe you've got 200. Sports Car Market has been around for 31 years, and it's filled with valuable articles, intelligent write-ups, and the latest auction sales. Go to sportscarmarket.com and subscribe today. And don't miss my weekly podcast with Keith Martin titled Buy, Sell, Hold. It's the essence of collecting. We talk to the movers and shakers in the collector car world. Here's a couple deals I have for you just for listening here on Cars Yeah. If you use the checkout code Cars Yeah, you'll receive a 50% discount on your digital subscription at Sports Car Market. That's an exclusive offer from Cars Yeah. And guess what? Here's another deal. If you'd like to get the actual magazine, use the code BSH for Buy, Sell, Hold. That's code BSH, and you'll get $10 off your annual print subscription. That's right, $10 off. Both of these are exclusive offers here at Cars Yeah for Sports Car Market magazine. Just go to sportscarmarket.com and get your deals today. If you're listening to Cars Yeah, you've probably spent some time working on your favorite ride. But how confident are you working on your finances? You may be able to rebuild a fuel injection system, but can you decipher the details of a mutual fund? If you're like me, investments, insurance, annuities, budgeting, and other financial concepts may seem a bit daunting, but what if I told you there's a book that describes these subjects and more in an easy-to-read and a very humorous way? My friend Chris Kimball, CFP, a longtime sponsor and past guest here on Cars Yeah, has written that book, and it's titled The Saga of Ike and Penny, a couple's humorous journey through the confusing world of finance. It's a fun look at things you need to know, everything from investing to effective ways to get rid of credit card debt, and it's probably the only book on finance with a VMAX on the front cover and a classic Mini Cooper on the back. The book's available at Amazon for just $10, and this book will dramatically improve the direction of your financial future. I gave copies to each of my children. All securities are through Money Concepts Capital Corp. Christopher Kimball Financial Services is not affiliated with Money Concepts Capital Corp. Get your copy, The Saga of Ike and Penny, today. Hey, Pete, we're back, and I'd love for you to share a story that is a road you went down that challenged you with maybe a big failure or something that kind of set you back on your heels. Take us on that journey, but more importantly, what did that lead to in the way of a learned experience and moving forward in a positive way?
Mark, I don't like to relive the past.
I know. But I'm going to drag it out of you, buddy.
your question is it makes me think a little bit.
Good.
And I will tell you that looking back on it now, another lifetime ago, I got involved in a restaurant back in Denver, Colorado. Uh-huh. And let me just say first and foremost, for any of those that are listeners out there that own or manage or run a successful restaurant, I applaud you.
Hats off. It's
just one of those things that I've tried it and I've not been successful at it, and I applaud anybody that can be. I learned a lot about the service industry and restaurants in general. That goes without saying. Mm-hmm. But my biggest takeaway from that, and it was a failure, I'll tell you that right now, Mark, it was a failure. Mm-hmm. But my biggest takeaway from that was really take the time to investigate before jumping in to a big decision. And this may sound very common sense, knowledge, but it's important when you're young and full of vigor and life, and you don't take the time to investigate, smell the roses, and really the old adage, if it looks too good to be true, it probably is.
Yes.
And that goes with a lot of things in life. So really it's, take a breath, take a moment, especially when making big decisions. Again, just common sense will tell you, just investigate a little bit more. Go in with eyes wide open.
Yes. That industry, I don't know why anybody would want to do that. And I don't demean anyone doing it, because I say that because it just seems incredibly difficult and challenging to me in so many ways. And I have a good friend that I try to mentor and help. He's younger, and he was frustrated with his career and had this supposed opportunity for this restaurant that these people are selling, and it's got to happen fast and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, whoa. What on earth do you know about the restaurant business? Have you ever worked in it? Do you know anything about it? Do you know anybody who does it? I mean, I started rattling off all these questions, and I think I at least got the bit set in his mouth a bit to stop and do what you just recommended. And then start to investigate and then realize, oh my goodness, this could have been a disaster. So I'm glad you took us there, but it really does apply to any business at all, actually, because a lot of people look at something from the outside and it looks simple. And podcasting, when I got into this, I had no idea what I was doing. I did so much investigations and realized this is, I won't say it's hard, but there's so many complex moving parts to it that you don't think about. And I've had people that have called and said, hey, I want to be a podcaster like you. Where do I get a microphone? I'm like, okay, that's like a race car driver saying, I want to be a race car driver. Where do I get some gloves? Yeah. Okay. What about all the other stuff? What other stuff? How hard could it be? So, yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate you taking us there. Sorry to put a bad taste back in your mouth, but I no doubt you took those lessons forward in a positive light, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Very nice. Cool. Well, let's talk about a story that instigated your personal passion for cars. I deem here that you've been a car guy for quite some time. So what was that pivotal moment when you realized that cars were for you?
Mark, like many of your guests, my roots, with all things mechanical goes way back to the very beginnings of my existence. My parents have stated on more than one occasion that my first word was truck.
Oh, cool.
And I credit that to my dad. And as I mentioned earlier, he owned his own heating and air conditioning company. And as a small business owner, he maintained those trucks, those work trucks. So I spent many evenings and weekends with him just maintaining those trucks. And, you start out with, the little things, the oil changes, the spark plugs, going through doing radiator flushes. And then pretty soon, as I was becoming more of more adept at my craft work under the hood, started doing engine swaps and things like that. And it kind of set the hook, as you just mentioned. I remember when I was 5 or 6, my dad had brought home a brochure for a go-kart. And I don't know if he realized what he was doing at that time, but I was enamored, for weeks. I mean, it seemed like months. I just read and memorized that brochure about a go-kart. And finally, one day, my dad brought one home. And, at that point, the rest is history. I was hooked on cars and going fast.
No doubt. Well, I think all young men and some young women probably too love the idea of a go-kart. I was in the same boat. I learned a tough lesson though about building a go-kart. Put a kill switch where you can reach it fast, because when the throttle cable breaks wide open and you're going down the alley between the houses and there's a corner coming up and you go right into Miss Tanone's garage door, it's not a good thing. at all. So,
Good observation.
yeah, put a kill switch somewhere really quick where you can shut it off, just like on a vintage car, so you can stop that power flow and maybe a fire. Luckily, I didn't burn up, but I sure hit that thing awful hard. No helmets back then either, so ouch.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. How about your first special car or race car? Is there a special car for you that came along that you kind of felt like, all right, I've done it, I've made it?
It's so currently, I mean, I've had some cars go through my garage, and currently what resides out there is a factory 5 Cobra replica that is my track day car, and
nice.
that's not my. I mean, it's special to me, and I love that car, and I've had it for almost 20 years now. But I was going to share a story with you that this is me take some people back to kind of their very beginnings, because I always like to ask people this kind of the same questions, but like, what was your first car? And one of my first cars, which really it just cemented the whole car hobby with me, was a 72 Ford Ranchero 351 Cleveland, backed up to an FMX transmission. It served several purposes. It's half car, half truck. And we talked about a little bit before, I raced motocross and enduros back when I was a teenager. And so this car had the ability to go fast. I could haul my bike, and it was just all things, and it was my world. And I loved that car. It was a $500 buy-in, Mark. Probably the best money I've ever spent on a car.
$500 I ever spent on a car.
Yep. And that car, I think back to some of the special times that it represents in my life. And one of those was my dad used to ride bikes with me, and Mother's Day weekend, we would kind of, the first race of the year was in a little town in Chadron, Nebraska, the Pine Ridge Enduro. I just remember being able to load up the bikes. We drove up there from Denver, and it was camping, it was racing, it was hanging out with the big boys. I felt like I had come of age. It's that time in a young man's life. When I look back on it, I completely, I enjoyed that, and it was a wonderful time, and I credit my dad with that.
Back when I was that age, 72, I was just, 14 years old, I guess is what I was. And I was detailing cars. I had my own detailing business, and I had a client that had a brand new GT. I remember it was red with a white stripe that went all the way down the side. From the front of that thing, it had scoops in the hood, if I'm remembering the car right. And it was an odd car because I didn't see many of those around. The Ranchero was like, and this lady drove it. It was like her everyday driver. I'm like, what's this lady driving this thing? It's like crazy. And she let me drive it up and down the street. I didn't have a license yet. Don't tell my mom. She'll be really nervous about that. But it's like, whoa, this thing is like monster under the hood. I do remember not liking to wax it because the hood went on forever.
They were huge.
Yeah, I was like, I need to charge extra next time for this thing. This took me twice as long to do. There's a lot of metal on those cars, the Malaise era of the 70s for sure. Yeah, very cool. Well, here's an introspective question for you. If you woke up tomorrow and you were a car, Pete, what would you be?
Tough one here, Mark. There's so many to choose from, but I'm going to go maybe the path less traveled here. This was really my first vehicle, a 1972 Ford F-250 Highboy, 4x4. It was, when I look at it, I look back on it, just, again, strong, utilitarian, not pretty, rugged, really, but most importantly, reliable. And that's what I think that would serve its purpose. Okay,
very good. Rugged and reliable. That is Pete for sure. So very nice. All right, here we go. This is the lightning round, or the last lap, as I like to call it. I'm going to fire off some questions. Have you give me some real quick blips of that Highboy throttle answer. So here we go. What's one of your personal habits you believe has helped you be successful over the years?
With what I do today is just live, eat, and breathe cars and car people. I think probably one of my habits that I would credit, and my mom she probably would never believe that this would ever happen, but I read everything I can get my hands on about cars. For me, it's that understanding their nuances, their history, their special time in history. If I can get my hands on it and read about it, it helps me do my job daily, which is to build relationships with those insureds and those people that have those cars that we look to put insurance on.
There you go. How about if I could arrange for you to sit down and enjoy a meal or a drink? That's a meek. It's a drink and a meal combined. A drink and a meal with I just made that up, didn't I? With anyone in the automotive industry, living or deceased. Who would it be?
Oh, there are so many out there, Mark. But I will tell you, as a Shelby fanatic and member, recently the Ford versus Ferrari movie has definitely stirred the pot a little bit and ruffled some feathers. And I would say, I would love to sit down with Ken Miles.
Oh, wow, what a character!
Definitely just one of those people that a character is a great description, and I think it would be great to sit down and have a beer or a glass of some adult beverage, maybe a meek, I guess. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, meek. Yeah, a drink and a meal together. Yeah, that's a new word we just coined today here on Cars. Yeah.
would love to, hear his side of the story, and just, at the end, was he okay with the decisions that were made by the big corporate, mucky mucks at the top? So
I'm sure he wasn't okay with any of them. He didn't like any of that stuff. No, he was a rebel. Interesting guy. There's a gentleman, we've lost him years ago, Pat Hart, who lived up in the Pacific Northwest. He was a collector of vintage cars. One of the cars he had was one of the Batmobiles, number 3, which was cool. I got to spend actually 2 days with the classic Batman, Adam West. Had him here. We went up and saw that car, and he told me some really funny stories about the Batmobile back in the day when he was filming Batman. But one of the cars Pat had was a car that Ken Miles raced. It was an MG called the Flying Shingle. Have you ever heard of that car?
Yes, I have.
54 MG R2, I believe, is what they called that car. It was a beautiful little car, probably a one-off, I believe. I don't think ever saw it at all. But Ken Miles would be pretty cool, and I believe he passed driving a Ford J-Car prototype when he crashed. Was it 1965 or 6 somewhere? Maybe
6, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
End of 6, I think. Yep.
Yeah, but that would be pretty cool. Yeah, to have a drink or two with Ken Miles. Wow, that'd be a fun evening. How about the best automotive advice someone else has given you?
Okay, this has come probably mostly from my dad. Again, but if you've played with cars and you've done it on a shoestring budget, you will probably relate to this. Fix it right the first time.
Yeah, because why is there always time to fix it right the second time, but there never is the first time? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, take your time.
That's the best advice. Take the time, fix it right.
Yeah, your dad taught you a lot of great things for sure. How about a resource that's out there for people that you think's a good go-to? What would it be?
Mark, I'm going to give you 2. Probably first and foremost, our website. This is another shameless plug here for HeacockClassic.com. Lots of interesting articles out there and content about vehicles and cars across all strata and eras of the automobile. But one that I've been on their website since the very beginnings, and I just have to, give them another shameless plug, is Bring a Trailer.
Oh, yeah.
I learn so much from all of the postings and all of the stuff that shows up on that website, ever since the very beginning when you actually had to bring a trailer to pick up the cars that were advertised. I just thoroughly enjoy the camaraderie on that website.
They've done a great job. Randy Nonnenberg was a guest back on my show when he announced it on my show that they were going to start doing auctions. They weren't doing it. Back then, they were just reporting on cars being sold. And boy, has that taken off. And I know that since this pandemic has hit, their business has grown rapidly because people can only shop online. So kudos to what he's done. I need to get him back on this show. He's a hard guy to track down because he's so busy, but they've really done a tremendous job. And I think they've opened the eyes to a lot of other car sellers that, we might want to follow in those footsteps and do what they're doing. And of course, now with this pandemic, I believe we are already seeing auction houses doing online auctions that they've never done before. Typically, they do them live, and they can't, so they got to do something. So there you go. Bring a Trailer. If you're not following Bring a Trailer, I encourage you to do it, but be careful, because it will eat up about an hour of time every stinking morning. You will see cars you never even knew you wanted posted there. You'll want to jump in and make comments. It's kind of fun to read the comics. Take some of them with a grain of salt because everybody's an expert behind the keyboard. But I'll just leave it there. But it's a great place to go play. And of course, Heacock Classic Car Insurance. I'll put links to those on Pete's show notes page. Hey, Pete, is there a book you've read that you think our listeners would enjoy?
Going off the reservation on this one, Mark.
Okay.
I'm gonna, not a car type of book.
It's okay.
But a similar type of passion that is held there. Irving Stone's Agony and the Ecstasy by Michelangelo.
Well, classic, right?
Definitely. Life lessons, work hard and love your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Great book. Well, I'll remind our listeners, there's a great place on the Cars Yeah website called Guest Recommended Books. It's under the Resources tab. All my inspiring automotive enthusiasts have recommended books. There's over 1,600 books there. You could fill an automotive and business library with these books. All come highly recommended. I stand behind almost all of them. I think most of them. I don't have them all on my shelf, but I've got a large library of business and car books. So check it out, and I've made it really easy for you listeners. You just click to go buy. Fast, simple, and easy. All right, Pete, we're up to the checkered flag here. This is a fun thought. I'm going to buy you a car today. Doesn't matter who owns it or where it is. I'm going to park it in your garage, but there are a few rules to this game. One is it's the only collector car you can have. So if you want to keep your factory 5, I don't have to buy anything. That's okay. You have to drive it. No garage queens here, but that's okay. With Heacock Collector Car Insurance, that's a possibility. And you can't sell it to buy a bunch of other toys with. So if you pick a Ferrari GTO, you're stuck with a Ferrari GTO. Poor boy. So what's it going to be, Pete? What can I buy you today?
This is an easy one for me.
Okay.
Again, I love my car that's in my garage today, but all-time favorite, Ford GT40 Mark II B.
Oh,
that's what I want.
Okay. Geez, like I say, you're not a cheap date. That's for sure. Man, well, it's hard to even ask this silly question, but what is it about that car that you love so much? Duh.
It's for me. It's always been. I think a lot of people have written about the looks, obviously the provenance of the car and what it's done in racing history. But I have to say, it's probably one of the sexiest looking vehicles I've ever seen, and it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's a American powered, V8. It's got the right sound. It's got the grunt, and it's a pairing of beautiful styling and just American work ethic behind it. So
it's a killer car. Now, were you at Pebble when they had all those Ford GTs out on the lawn?
I was.
About 4 years. Yeah. Yes. I lucked out. I don't know if you were there or not, but Saturday night before the Pebble Beach Concours, I happened to be at the Art Guild or the AFT, American... it's the art group there. I'm messing up their acronym here, but they used to have a tent there on the lawn, and they'd have a big party that Saturday night, and I'd always get invited. And I wandered outside because it was really warm that year, and I see all these Ford GTs getting lined up, and they put them in this cool shape. One of the Ford family members was there with pictures getting taken and all these people, and it was just like a dream to see all those cars together. So you saw it. You saw what was there. So is there one of those cars? Because there's not too many of those. Like one with the livery that you would like to have is the most important to you?
I've always been a little bit, I guess maybe outside the box. I go against the grain just a little bit. So
okay.
The one that would that you really don't see. Again, I live in the world of replica cars. So
yeah.
my probably the one that I like or would have modeled after is the gold Mario Andretti car.
Okay. Number 5?
I think it's number 5. At least the livery was number 5, yes. Just a different look and kind of that 60s, gaudy color scheme. It was,
yeah.
It was just something different,
That car was there. I think it's serial number P1047, the Ford GT40 that, I believe Mario Andretti raced that car. And that's pretty cool for that era too, that gold. I mean, I like that. It had kind of a different kind of stripe down the center versus the big fat stripes. It was a little more narrow. And yeah, that was a pretty darn cool car. Okay, well, I'll get to work. See what I can do. I'm going to have to pry that out of somebody's hands who probably wants a very big golfer-sized check for that. Those golfer checks, they win when they win with all the zeros on them. So, but I know who will insure it, so I've got that covered for you. Well, Pete, you've taken me on a fun ride. This has been great. Thanks for sharing your journey. Before I let you go, could you give us one little parting piece of wisdom or guidance before you rip off down the track in that Ford GT40 Mark II B in gold?
Yes, exactly. Well, just again, parting word of advice, real simple. everybody live life full bore. That's it.
There you go. Absolutely. Especially this day and age when things can be a little dubious. What's the best way for people to follow you at Heacock Classic Collector Car Insurance?
Sure, you bet. So Heacock Classic, Heacock Classic.com. That's our website. You'll find us on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, those social media outlets. So HeacockClassic.com.
There you go. I'll make sure I put links to all of those on Pete's show notes page. Check it out. If you have a collector car, your insurance time's coming up, give them a call, see what they can do for you. I think they'll take care of you and you'll be in very good hands. That was somebody else's insurance companies saying, but we won't mention them because we're talking about Heacock today. So check it out. Pete, thanks for being so generous today with your time, your expertise, and for sharing the fun that you have with cars, with the Cars Yeah listeners. Until you and I talk again, I'll see you down the road.
Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome. Hey, Cars Yeah listeners, I want to tell you about something fun I'm doing for one of my sponsors here, Covercraft. They have a YouTube page. You just go to Covercraft on YouTube. Check out my Tips, Tricks with Mark Green segments. We're doing multiple very short videos, some tips and tricks that I'm sharing with you about car care, about the Covercraft products. Check them out. They're kind of fun. Let me know what you think. And make sure when you're there to subscribe and ring the bell. That'll give me some extra kudos. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on today's ride here at Cars Yeah. Drive on over to carsyeah.com to find show notes and inspiring automotive fun. Download your free copy of Filler Up, a fun book filled with gorgeous photographs of fuel filler fun, including quotes from more inspiring automotive enthusiasts. Download your copy today, and we'll see you next time on Cars Yeah.